And so we get our final in a long line of Dany chapters that occur around the same time. And this is notably the last chapter in the book. However, it's not the last chapter chronologically, as there are several chapters which can be confirmed to actually take place after this chapter, as this is the first rising of the Red Comet, whereas there are other chapters before this where the comet is noted. Now, this is the chapter where the ritual is conducted, where the dragons are born. And we find that Miri tells Dany after she prepares to sacrifice a horse that it is not enough to kill a horse. Dany does not have the words to make spells, nor the wisdom to find them, and reveals that Meiji actually means wise, as it takes a lot of learning to conduct such things as blood magic. She then oddly asks Dany to release her bonds and she will help her, which is interesting as she clearly means to burn her at the stake in this chapter. So it's interesting that she's still offering to help her unless she is indeed part of an ulterior plot in order to hatch the dragons, which has been the plot of Illyrio and his faction the entire time. Miri is a plant, and she herself is in league with Marwyn, who may in fact be in league with Illyrio and Varys' group. And so we see they begin to build the pyre, and it's notable that of the items which they place in the fire, we find that there are all of Khal Drogo's treasures, including his tent, his vests, saddle and harness, a whip given by his father, an arak that he used to slay his enemies, and also a mighty dragonbone bow. It is noted that they would have also added the Blood Riders' weapons that they had given Dany for bridal gifts, but she forbid it and kept them as they were hers. Now, Jorah asks Dany not to continue this ritual and to flee with him, and again brings up that they should flee to the far east, possibly to Yi Ti, or even Karth, the Jade Sea, or Asshai, which is interesting as, yes, it does seem to be that as part of Illyrio's plot, they have been directed to get Dany to go in this direction, as this is the place where dragons are born. However, Jorah is unaware, as he is but a pawn, that this is going to be the birth of dragons right here and now, so he doesn't actually need to take her to Asshai. Jorah then also reveals that he has basically fallen for Dany as he has given her his heart, which he never gave to Viserys, and then he reveals to the reader that she intends to climb on the pyre as it burns. Now, while building the pyre, they lay the pieces for the base from east to west, following the path of the sun. And then we find that by the time they get to the third layer, they instead lay the items from north to south, which they note as being from ice to fire, which is very important symbolism in this franchise, given that ice and fire are at the centre of the core conflict of the entire story. Dany then ceremoniously gives her own Blood Riders the gifts that she received in the wedding. However, they refuse at first because this is not done as she is a woman. And it is notable that while she is doing this, there is interjections in the book that we get, such as, "If I look back, I am lost," showing that there is indeed a whisper behind Dany's actions driving her. She then turns to Jorah and decrees to him, as her first knight, she will one day place in his hands a great longsword like none the world has ever seen, dragon forged and made of Valyrian steel, in order to gain his oath. Now I wonder if this is actually going to come to pass at some point later in the books, and Daenerys will in fact provide Jorah with a great Valyrian sword for his services. Daenerys then goes to take a bath and purify herself with oils that she bought at the market. And interestingly enough, the water here is noted to be scalding hot. However, rather than hurting Dany, it appears to actually heal her and help her pains. So Daenerys prepares Drogo for his trip to the Nightlands, and he is placed on the pyre with his head pointing northeast towards the Mother of Mountains. Daenerys then ceremoniously places her 3 dragon eggs on the pyre against the protesting of Jorah Mormont, and we find that she puts the black egg under Drogo's arm next to his heart, the green one beside his head, with his hair coiled around it, and the cream one down between his legs. Now, Miri watches her as she does this and calls her mad, which is interesting, as if Miri is indeed part of the plot and she would know how the ritual would work, she perhaps is trying to goad Daenerys on further rather than dissuade her. Daenerys orders that Miri Mazdur be bound to the pyre. However, it is interesting to note here that Miri does not cry out at all as they drag her to the pyre, and claims that she will not scream for Daenerys. Daenerys then tells her that she does not need her screams, as it is her life she needs, as only death can pay for life. As she has also noted that she thanks Midi for the lessons she has taught her. So it seems that perhaps blood magic is not that complex and it is really just a trade for a trade. Now, it is revealed to us that when a Dothraki horse lord dies, his horse is slain with him so that he might ride it proudly into the Nightlands, and the bodies are both burned together beneath the open sky, and it's said that the Khal rises on his fiery steed to take his place among the stars. The more fiercely that the man burned in life, the brighter the star will be that shines at night for him, which again is another one of these Dothraki legends, which appears to just be a corrupted version of Valyrian mythology. The fiery steed rising from the pyre is the birth of a dragon, and we find that there's a lot of mythos regarding dragons and reincarnation. So this is the idea that someone who has died is reborn as a dragon, and also the concept of the stars being the ancestors, as we do see that there is some form of connection between the stars and the glass candle users. And so it comes to pass that the first star that they see that night is the first appearance of the red comet, burning bright in the sky and taken for a great sign. Now we find that as Dany lights the pyre, Miri begins to sing in a shrill, ululating voice, much like what she did in the tent previously with the ritual to revive Drogo. And then, soon enough, as the fires begin to spread to the point where the heat is unbearable and logs begin to break, we hear Miri falter, and then her song becomes a shuddering wail, thin and high and full of agony. As the flames engulf Drogo, Dany sees it as him wearing a floating orange silk dress of sorts, with the flames curling around him, and in that instance she is drawn to go to him, much like Jorah had feared. As Dany watches the pyre's flames grow higher, she notes to herself that the brazier had not been hot enough, and that she can sense the blood of the dragon within herself. And so she sees the flames as dancing people, much like those she saw at her wedding, and then she thinks to herself that this too is a wedding. Now by this point, Miri has fallen silent, and Daenerys is drawn to the pyre, slowly walking towards it. The flames are so beautiful, and only the fire mattered. And she even describes them as each one a sorcerer robed in yellow and orange and scarlet. She saw crimson fire lions and great yellow serpents and unicorns made of pale blue flame. She saw fish and fox and monsters, wolves and bright birds and flowering trees, each more beautiful than the last. She saw a horse, a great grey stallion limbed in smoke, its flowing mane a nimbus of blue flame. She begins to shed her clothes as she approaches the flames and feels them starting to burn, and notably enters the flames while also lactating, which may actually be an important part of the ritual. For an instant, she believes that she sees the spirit of Drogo before her, mounted on a stallion, and then at that moment, a great crack occurs, the sound of a shattering stone, and we find that pieces of a dragon egg fall before her as the pyre begins to crumble. Only death can pay for life is seen here, and then there comes a second crack, loud and sharp as thunder, and Daenerys can hear the Khalasar outside screaming and Jorah calling for her. However, she thinks, "Do not fear for me, the fire is mine. I am Daenerys Stormborn, the daughter of dragons, bride of dragons, mother of dragons." And the pyre finally falls down around her with the third crack, which is as loud and sharp as the breaking of the world. And so, several hours later, after the ground had finally become cool enough to walk upon, Jorah found her amongst the ashes of the pyre, surrounded by the burnt bones of man and woman and stallion. She is naked at this point, covered in soot, as her clothes turned to ash, and her hair even crisped away, yet she herself was unburnt. The most striking thing that Jorah sees here is that she now has 3 baby dragons. The cream and gold one, suckling at her left breast, the green and bronze one to the right, while she cradled them, and a black and scarlet one that draped around her shoulders, with eyes as red as coals. He falls to his knees, and the men of Arkaz come up behind him and immediately swear their oaths to her upon seeing what she has created. And so it comes to pass that for the first time in hundreds of years, the night comes alive with the music of dragons.